I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Another Thing. After a series of disturbing undercover videos shot by a pro-life advocacy group, Planned Parenthood is under fire with calls both in Washington and state capitals across the nation to defund Planned Parenthood, to stop government funding. Passions are high on both sides of the debate, and in a moment we'll have representatives of both sides to discuss this. But first, Kolodziej catches us up on the controversy and the renewed fight over Planned Parenthood. Ellen.
Thank you, Larry. Millions of Americans were outraged at those undercover videos. And even though Planned Parenthood insists they underwent a lot of editing, Republicans in Congress are fighting to defund the organization. But one local law professor here in Philadelphia is getting national attention, saying that's unconstitutional.
I don't see the legs. Did you see any legs?
The video shocked so many and put Planned Parenthood's president on the hot seat at a contentious congressional hearing aimed at cutting all federal money for the organization.
The latest smear campaign is based on efforts by our opponents to entrap our doctors and clinicians into breaking the law, and once again, our opponents failed. We don't believe that women's health or women's rights should be a partisan issue.
And we don't think eating dinner salads and drinking wine while you're discussing infanticide, we have a problem with that, too.
The Constitution prohibits both the states and the federal government from enacting what's called a bill of attainder, which is legislation that punishes an individual.
David S. Cohen is a law professor at Drexel University and author of Living in the Crosshairs, The Untold Stories of Anti-Abortion Terrorism. He made national news by saying defunding Planned Parenthood violates the Constitution.
If you're going to be punished, you're supposed to be punished through the courts, because the courts give you lawyers, they give you process and opportunity to be heard. The fear is that if legislatures punish, they don't give you any of those protections, and they can really just target you for unfair reasons.
But conservative columnist Christine Flowers sent Cohen a letter saying he's wrong. She says you cannot be punished if you're being deprived of something that's completely optional and discretionary. Planned Parenthood has no constitutional right to funding from the taxpayers.
That's all entirely true. And if Congress wants to get rid of all of this funding for family planning, for every family planning outlet that receives this money, Congress can do so. And Planned Parenthood or anyone else would never claim they have a right to this money.
So even though stripping Planned Parenthood of its funding at the federal level might never happen, it might happen on a state-by-state basis. For example, Texas and Louisiana both recently decided to stop Medicaid payments to Planned Parenthood, but now both states are duking it out with the feds in court. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Kolodziej.
All right, thank you, Ellen. Now to talk more about the fight over the funding or defunding of Planned Parenthood. Jesse Burns is the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of New Jersey, and Marie Tasy is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Right to Life. Let's start by, because there's been a renewed fight now because of these videos by an anti-abortion advocacy group who is showing the practices of Planned Parenthood that many find offensive. That is the reason for this, right? And can you look at those videos and defend them?
Well, the videos have been discredited by an independent research firm led by an investigative journalist. There's big pieces of the video that are missing, and even in the videos that are edited, the Planned Parenthood people in the video make clear that it's not for profit, the fetal tissue donation. But really, when we talk about defunding Planned Parenthood, what we're talking about is the services that federal money pays for, that Title X and Medicaid reimbursement pays for. And that's things like life-saving cancer screenings, STI testings, and affordable birth control for millions of women.
Now, you brought up a couple of things, and I will get you to respond, Marie, but before I do that, I thought the group released the unedited versions because it was supposedly discredited, and then they said, okay, we'll release the whole version on YouTube. They've done that, right? So are the unedited versions also discredited, you're saying?
I'm not sure. I think that it's in the unedited versions, it's clear that the Planned Parenthood people on the videos are saying that these tissue donations are not for profit, that the cost that it costs is for things like shipping, and everything's within legal compliance. And Planned Parenthood has been investigated. They continue to be investigated. So, I mean, the League looks forward to those conclusions from the investigation. We trust that Planned Parenthood is going to be cleared by as they've been cleared by past investigations going forward. Now,
let Marie talk, because I know she has a lot to say, because I can see her reaction out of my peripheral vision. So you disagree?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, the videos have been analyzed by forensic specialists, and they have been found to be authentic. The only edits were bathroom breaks and waiting for the people who we're waiting to meet arrive. They are apparently, by the videos, they are talking about making a profit. One of the top Planned Parenthood officials talked about wanting a Lamborghini, okay? They're talking about some very high costs in relation to livers, pancreases, hearts, eyes, gonads. I mean, it's really a disgusting situation.
No, a lot of it was disturbing, but I want to go back to the point about the editing. Because there was one that came up during the presidential debate with Carly Fiorina when she talked about a live fetus, a baby that was kicking legs. It turns out that wasn't the same fetus, and they admitted that later. They put that video in, and so once they put that video in, they are making a statement at that point. That was selective editing.
No, because if you looked at the video, it said footage courtesy of Bioethics Reform, the name of the group that provided that particular
I see. So you're saying even though it's not the exact fetus they're talking about, it is a live.
If you watch the video, you will see that. As far as all these services that Planned Parenthood performs, these same services can be performed and are performed by federally qualified health centers. There's 111 of them here in the state of New Jersey, and they provide the same services. They don't have the abortion connection as Planned Parenthood does. Planned Parenthood gets 41% of their income from the taxpayer. They made $528 million in revenue from taxpayer money. That's 41% of their income came from taxpayer money. Their president makes $590,000 a year in salaries. Their top officials, employees make over $300,000 a year. They spent $5 million in travel last year. This is a private nonprofit organization. They get involved in political battles. They fund campaigns. They lobby legislators.
Campaigns.
Absolutely.
Before you go on, let me just make sure. Let me see if you agree with those figures. Are those figures all correct that she's quoting?
What I want to actually talk about is the point that there are other clinics that provide these services.
You can do that. That's fine. But are the figures correct?
I don't know Planned Parenthood's figures. I know the League's figures, and I know that the money that Planned Parenthood takes federally, Title X, Medicaid reimbursement, that's not the same money that's being talked about for their political action committee and their private donors and things like that, and that money's not used for abortion services.
So you're confident that none of the money that's given by the federal government, I know it's illegal to use it for that, none of the money, because the accusation is that there's backroom ways of doing that they are actually funding abortion.
Yes, I'm confident.
You're confident with
confident
that? And you're confident that none of that money is being sent back to politicians?
I'm confident that the Planned Parenthood is heavily audited, that they are under the same kind of procedures that anybody else is under to receive federal money, and I'm confident that they're not mixing their pots.
Let me ask you, the videos, though, they're a reason to renew the fight. That's not the reason you wanted to fund Planned Parenthood, right? Do you wanted to fund Planned Parenthood because you're against abortions?
Yes, and we don't believe that taxpayers should be funding a private nonprofit organization that clearly can fund itself.
And that is the reason for the fight right now, right? It is a continuing fight. It's not the videos. Everybody's talking about the videos now, but this, in your belief, would be a continuing fight to defund Planned Parenthood so that there could be less abortions.
Because they provide abortion services.
They are the largest provider of abortions. They performed over 327,000 abortions last year.
But are you confident that there's no federal funds being used for that?
Am I confident? No, I think there are federal funds being used for that, absolutely. And there have been whistleblower cases where employees have said that they are doing that. Here in New Jersey, they were audited in 2001 to 2005 by the Office of Inspector General, and they found that they were misapplying Medicaid funds that were supposed to be used for family planning that were not family planning services. Planned Parenthood does not have a stellar record here in New Jersey either. They've been inspected by the Department of Health. They've been found to have a lot of violations medications for health and safety problems and reusing vaginal ultrasounds. You know, this just happened in their Mercer County Planned Parenthood that performs abortion, the one right here in Shrewsbury, Central Jersey Planned Parenthood. So there's a lot of things, misdeeds that Planned Parenthood has been involved in, and again, they don't need taxpayer money.
Aside that, and let's stay on that point for a second. Why do we have to fund Planned Parenthood? I mean, even if, forget the abortion question for a second. Why do we have to send federal funds to Planned Parenthood when there's so many other organizations that do the same thing?
So that's kind of that's a two-point thing. One, that's a what should the government pay for argument, and that's a larger argument. What kind of services should the government provide?
I mean, we already pay for health care now. That's what I'm saying. So why would we then have to pay a separate amount of money, taxpayers pay a separate amount of money to Planned Parenthood if maybe they could just be covered through health care?
Not to Planned Parenthood, to federal funds, to Title X and Medicaid reimbursements, which is part of the healthcare system. Planned Parenthood's not the only organization in the safety net. They're one of the places. Federal qualified healthcare centers do provide an important service. They are another part of this service, this healthcare safety net. But the truth is that Planned Parenthood is trusted by a lot of women. And if you take Planned Parenthood away, those services are no longer available for lower income women. The other centers are not going to be able to take the number of patients Planned Parenthood cares for.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you being in. Thank you so much. Jessie Burns, Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of New Jersey, and Marie Tasy is Executive Director of New Jersey Right to Life. When we come back, a real change of topics. We're going to talk about tipping in restaurants. I'm against it. We'll talk about two restaurant owners that are all for it when we return.